Internal Revenue Service IRS Tax News. Understanding the taxpayer's right to be informed. IRS Tax Tip 2021-76, May 27, 2021. Taxpayers have the right to know what they need to do to comply with tax laws. This seems obvious, but it's actually quite important. We can imagine a situation which we would think would be not fair if the law was made up and wasn't basically provided so that the citizens could know about it, and then when you were in violation, penalized for something that you didn't really have the ability to know about, we would think that that would not be a fair system. How could we be informed about the law? Well, they can make, of course, the law a transparent thing, something that we can look up. Much of the information is the information that we can find basically on the IRS website. So one of the goals for government when making laws and applying the laws should be transparency, making the laws transparent, making them available so that we can know what the law is and how to be in compliance with the law. When they tell us that we're not in compliance in some way, shape, or form, they should be informing us what exactly component of the law we're not in compliance with. Let us look it up on our own and see whether or not we agree or not as to the compliance with that particular law and what kind of steps would need to be taken. So back to the text, not just during filing season, but all year. When something happens to taxpayer's account, the taxpayer has the right to be informed about the activity. In fact, this right is one of the outlined in the Taxpayers Bill of Rights. There's a link to the Taxpayers Bill of Rights here. So if the IRS makes a change to your filing status or your account or your tax return or something like that, they can't just they shouldn't just send you a bill. You shouldn't just get a bill and the IRS says, you owe us more money. They need to tell you, well, this is what you did. This is the thing that in the law that we believe that you violated or you didn't fill out properly, and that's the reason that we made the change. Here's the actions that we recommend that you take, and of course you can research it yourself because the entire law should be transparent and accessible to you in order to do so if you want to argue if you do not believe the IRS's position is correct. So the right to be informed is at the top of the list. This means taxpayers have the right to know what they need to do to comply with the tax laws, have clear explanation of the laws and IRS procedures in all forms, instructions, publications, notices, and correspondence. So note once again, whenever talking to the IRS or performing something with regards to the IRS, it should be transparent as to what you're doing. That's why the law is out there. You have access to the law. We have access to the forms themselves, and we have access to the instructions on the forms. Those are all on the IRS website, as well as publications and any notices and correspondence that the IRS gives. Once again, should not simply be, hey, here's a bill because we found a mistake. You owe us $500. No, they got to say, we think that there was a change that was made on the tax return that was, in accordance with the law, in accordance with here's the law if you want to reference it and look it up yourself. And due to that change, here's the change that we are recommending. If you agree with it, then proceed forward. If not, then you can do your own research and you can basically argue it from that point in time. So be informed of IRS decisions about their tax accounts. So clearly, if the IRS makes a decision or some type of determination that changes your tax account or something like that, changes your return or something like that, then they have to inform you. They got to tell you, they should send you a letter, say, hey, here's what we're adjusting or here's what we believe should be adjusted based on the law. So receive clear explanations of the outcomes of the IRS's decision. So once again, whenever the IRS makes a decision, they should be telling you, they shouldn't be telling you, if you ask the IRS, well, why did you make that change? The answer should not be, because I told you so, because I said so, right? That's not, they should be telling you, we made the change because this is what the law says, be able to reference the law. This is what we believe was outside the parameters of the law. You can look it up and research it yourself, and that's what we recommend the change should be. You can agree with it or not. If you don't agree with it, you could basically possibly take further actions to argue it. If you do agree with it, then we're arguing from the standpoint of the law that's on the books and should be transparent and available for everybody to see. So to make sure taxpayers are informed, the IRS will include within certain notices any amounts of the tax, interest, and certain penalties the taxpayer owes. So if the IRS sends a letter and says, hey, we made a change or we think you owe taxes or something like that, they should be able to break out, here's the amount of tax. And whenever you owe tax, then you're going to owe interest on top of it because the IRS is then going to calculate interest because they think of it as a loan and penalties on top of that, they're going to have to list those things out. Again, they shouldn't just be saying, hey, you owe us $523. They're going to say, no, here it is. And you can argue it's two different things to argue whether or not the law is fair and whether or not they're in compliance with the law. From the IRS's standpoint, as the agent of the government, they are acting in accordance with the law, and their goal then is to make the law transparent and then do their job in accordance with the law, referencing it as they make the changes and trying to be as transparent as they can with that. Our argument from negotiating with the IRS's standpoint would be, okay, did you calculate the interest tax properly? Did you calculate the interest properly? Did you calculate the penalties properly? Because they're not making it up. It's in the law. And then if we have a question about the law itself, if we think the law is wrong, then of course we can't really take that up with the IRS. We got to take that up with Congress. We got to elect people that will make changes possibly to the law itself. The IRS is there to take the law, which should be transparent, and go with the rules of the law, and we can argue with the IRS on the basis of the law, of the written law. So explain why the taxpayer owes any taxes. So if the IRS says you owe more taxes, there should be a reason for it within the law. Explain the specific reasons why it denied a refund claim. So if you claimed a refund and the IRS said no for whatever reason, they didn't give a refund, they can't just say no. If you ask them and they say, because I said so, no, you can't. That's not what they should be saying. That's not a proper response from the IRS. They should say, because it's not in compliance with the law here. And then if you ask them, well, why is the law the way it is? Well, that's kind of outside their domain again. That's in Congress. You got to ask Congress about that. They're acting within the law. They should be able to justify their actions with regards to the law. So post information on irs.gov to help taxpayers understand their IRS notice or letter. There's links to that here. Send a letter with the agency assessed a tax. The letter must include. So when they send a letter, it's going to basically include. So when they send a letter, when the agency assesses a tax, the letter must include information on how the taxpayer can appeal the decision. So they're going to send a letter. If they send a letter and say, we have assessed a tax, meaning you might owe tax here, then they have to basically let you know that you can't appeal the decision. How could you appeal the decision? How could you argue against the decision? Now, again, when you argued against the decision, you can't just say, well, that's not fair, the law is stupid, or something like that, obviously, because the law is what it is. But if they made their decision on something that is a gray area of the law, or you think that they're wrong with regards to the law itself, then we can go to the law itself and argue on the basis of it as to whether the IRS took the correct action or not. So it should have an explanation on the entire process from the audit through the collection process, details on how the Taxpayers Advocate Service can help. So the Taxpayer Advocate Service is a service that may be able to help, give advice to taxpayers, and there's a link to them here as well. Send an annual statement to the taxpayer who enter into a payment plan. The statement will include how much the taxpayer. Now note the statement for the payment plan. If you couldn't pay the taxes and you set up a payment plan, which is typically what you would want to do in general circumstances, if you can't pay the taxes, then once again, the IRS should be in compliance and let you know, give you information about the status of the payment plan. So it should include So the statement will include how much the taxpayer owes at the beginning of the year, paid during the year, still owes at the end of the year. So make forms and publications available on irs.gov. So forms and publications should be as transparent as possible. They update them every year, so they're on the IRS website. So if you want to look at the Form 1040, obviously it's right there. If you want to look at the instructions for it, which is often a good starting point when you're researching any topic with regards to just populating your 1040, then the instructions should be there. They should be updating those every year. Now, obviously, when do they get them updated could be a question, because like last year, of course, they made changes all the way up through the end of the year and beyond. So it was kind of it's kind of difficult to know. You got to know when the last updated version is out there. But if they get things together and they get everything ready for the end of the tax year, they should be updating those forms, and they should be available to you to research them as well. So use social media to provide helpful tax information to a wide audience of taxpayers. So they do have the social media accounts, so you can link on them, and you can follow the IRS on the social media as well. So there's links to those items here. There'll be a link to this in the description.